Well, I feel fortunate because I've been involved in most of the biennales in one way or another, either as a visitor to see the exhibition or as an exhibitor and now as a part of the jury. Um, and I've also had the opportunity to be involved in the Mino International Biennale in Japan, and also at the Gyeonggi Museum in Taiwan, and in that Biennale as a judge. So it's interesting for me because over the last 10 years or so, I've seen all the big major Asian international biennales. And I think I've always felt from the very early first Biennale, actually, that the Korean Biennale was the most ambitious um, by far, and the most well organized, artistically ambitious and professionally ambitious. And from the way in which they thought about it, and the way in which the curators brought artists and art to Korea, to the publications and everything, I felt like it's the strongest of all the biennales in Asia. So that's the first thing, I think. I think their job is difficult because they've been so ambitious. You know, the field of contemporary ceramics is not that big, and I, you know, they consume the field, and they try not to repeat themselves, and so it's a difficult job, really, to continue to try to find new talent and new ways to reimagine and rethink the Biennale. But you know, I feel like every year they find a way to do that and make it interesting and make it worth coming to. So.
And the theme for the 2013 Biennale is community, with me, with you, with us. Do you think this theme is appropriate for what's happening in the world today?
To be honest, I don't know what I think about themes, but they're difficult. I feel like, you know, an institution feels more comfortable with having a theme, you know. Personally, I don't know that they're that necessary, but it does help focus attention, and certainly the theme that was announced is very much in keeping with the spirit of ceramics, which is a communal activity, and it always has been and probably always will be. It takes a lot of people to make ceramics. It's not an individual endeavor. And it does operate throughout the culture, from high art to community-based activities, and so it's an appropriate theme, I think. And my concern, though, when I'm a judge or I'm just looking at talent, is I'm a little less concerned with a theme and more concerned with just trying to find the most interesting art and bring that to the exhibition.
The theme helps with focusing maybe how to make the art.
I think it does help focus a group, because you have a group of very diverse curators and who have different interests, and if you don't focus them somehow, you may have a problem. But and so I think it did do that.
The next question is, presently, the ceramic industry, including the art markets, academic environment, education, is struggling somewhat, and this is a universal phenomenon that's taking place in Korea as well as internationally. How do you see ceramics developing in the future?
I am not a pessimistic person, you know. I don't want to be foolish about it either, but I'm more optimistic than I am pessimistic. And I feel like things are changing. You know, everything's moving so quickly in culture now, and there's so many shifts, cultural shifts, that we're witnessing worldwide, that engage all levels of culture. And so that, of course, is going to affect art and going to affect ceramics. And probably the biggest shift that I notice is that there really isn't a center anymore. There are no clear leaders in the field, you know. And I think there used to be identifiable leaders, artistic leaders in the field, because the field was small. But the field's grown so much in the past 50 years that a lot of the artistic territory that had not been engaged has been engaged, and so the field is kind of fractured into territories of interest. There's lots of different territories of interest, but no major no major figures in the field, you know. So I kind of see it continuing to do that, where there will be, the field will grow and, you know, identify new territories that it can occupy. So you'll have lots of different territories of interest. And I think one thing that we're starting to see more of that I like is where ceramics, on the art side, is where ceramics is not just referring to its own history anymore. There are a lot of artists that are working, and they're just working with contemporary themes in art and culture, and not always referring back to the history of ceramics, which is so beautiful and vast, really, and deep and interesting. But I think ceramics is starting to go beyond that, and so you see a lot of artists coming into the field and working with clay, but they don't know anything about the history of ceramics. They just have artistic ideas that they want to, you know, incorporate into clay. And young students also are doing that. They're less interested in the history of ceramics and more interested in artistic ideas that are contemporary. And I think for potters, it's really important, in my opinion, that potters uphold traditions. I think that the traditions are great and wonderful, and those traditions should be honored. There will always be a segment, you know, of people that make pottery that will uphold tradition. But potters, I think, also need to operate like designers do and think about the world that they live in right now, and try to adapt the things they make to what people need right now.
So you're saying it's important to go with the flow and the change.
Yeah, I think so. I think that will help keep pottery alive and relevant. You know, and you see it in the world of design. Designers are constantly adapting and changing their ideas to the way people live every day. And potters can do the same. And potters are doing the same thing on the design end. And so I think those two things, to uphold, maintain traditions, and also be flexible and reflexive and responsive to the world that we live in, are things that will help keep pottery alive into the future.
And the final question is, do you have any suggestions or comments you wish to make in order for the Biennale to improve further in the future?
Yeah, well, you know, if the question is about the future, then the answer is the young generation and future generations that will occupy the future. You know, and so I feel like what the Biennale is doing this time with the hot rookies is fantastic, it's the beginning of a more intensive focus on the younger generation of you know, potters and artists working with clay. And I feel like that's something that needs to be supported and should be supported with even more vigor, you know, more resources and more vigor, so that the younger artists and potters have an opportunity to really feel engaged in the culture, and that people care and give them opportunities.